On this month, when we observe Veterans Day, we have some stories about military service past and present. Jim Kirchherr starts at a place dedicated to that service and sacrifice, the Soldiers Memorial downtown. It has been closed for a while and is due to reopen a year from now with some changes and updates.
In April of 1942, one of World War II's first American heroes, Navy fighter pilot and St. Louis native Edward Butch O'Hare, was given a hero's welcome downtown. Shortly after the start of the war, at one of the early battles in the South Pacific, O'Hare single-handedly attacked a squadron of 9 Japanese bombers and was credited with shooting down 5 of them and saving his aircraft carrier. He was awarded the Medal of Honor. Butch O'Hare's parade went through downtown and ended appropriately at the Soldiers Memorial, a building that was conceived in the 1920s as a memorial to those who had lost their lives in the World War. It wasn't finished until 1938, and a few years later, we were deep into a Second World War. O'Hare was later killed in action. Chicago's airport is named for him. Butch O'Hare's portrait was prominently displayed in the Soldiers Memorial, and for a long time it remained heavily focused on the world wars and an era when America was the clear winner. Since then, the United States has been in wars and conflicts in Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan.
We had to open up these walls to put in the HVAC distribution, right. So those have been closed.
And on the planned reopening on Veterans Day 2018, this will be a Soldiers Memorial updated in many different ways. Our view of war in this century, it seems to me, with different generations, has to be a little different than it was in the middle of the 20th century.
I think that's very true, but I think it's still incredibly important to honor those who make the sacrifices that go to war to protect their country. And it's a sort of bravery and patriotism that a lot of people don't think about anymore. Back during World War I and World War II, everyone had family members that were serving in the military. Everyone was making sacrifices. The fact is, today, there are a number of people who are not impacted by the war.
So you could argue it's even more important to include this story because
yes.
it's not the shared community story that it used to be.
That's right.
It's a $30 million project overseen by the Missouri Historical Society, which has taken over operations of the city-owned monument and museum. When the site was dedicated by Franklin Roosevelt in 1936, he said America does not build monuments to war or conquests, but to commemorate the spirit of sacrifice in war. And in this new century, the museum curators are not straying from that idea.
You know, through all of our galleries, what we're seeking to do is honor military service veterans and their families. I think for more current conflicts, starting for us, really with Korea, because that's really one of your first modern conflicts moving forward after the post-World War II period. How we're dealing with it and how we're approaching it is looking at it through the lens of St. Louis, which we'll be doing through all of our exhibits. So you'll be hearing stories of St. Louisans. So these will be people that lived in your neighborhood. There'll be people that lived on your street, and that'll be part of the larger interpretation. In addition to that, we really are focusing on having veterans tell their own stories.
The 9 Network has been helping with that, gathering stories and memories in connection with Ken Burns' documentary series, The Vietnam War. Those will be contributed to the Soldiers Memorial Archives. And if I come to visit, will I see that more prominently, a Vietnam presence, than I would have previously?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
The updated exhibits will still be featured in the 2 main galleries, but the basement, once used for storage, and the city's emergency communication center is being redone for special exhibits and events. The large plaza between Market Street and the memorial is also being redone and will be more visible and inviting.
The Court of Honor, which many people didn't even realize was here, there's going to be a reflecting pool located right in front of the sculpture, and you can see the formation of that, and then a 5 branches fountain. And so one for each of the branches of the military with the name carved in stone. It's going to be a very sacred, contemplative space.
Again, this is not a museum about battles and military tactics. It's about the experiences of St. Louisans who went to war, and it's a monument to those who didn't come back. One of the 4 statues out front symbolizes the losses suffered by their children and families back home. When the History Museum folks took over, they took over a building and some 20,000 artifacts, and they're collecting more every week. But the challenge is not really about the stuff, it's about the stories and the people. There will be more new stories, but not at the expense of those who came before. Butch O'Hare's portrait will go back up.
So that'll actually be featured prominently in our upstairs multi-purpose room, and so it'll be alongside a larger-than-life portrait we have of General Pershing as well. And so anytime we have an event in the space, Butch O'Hare will be right there.